Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Focus on Fridays. This is our second ever Focus on Fridays, and I hope you're going to enjoy this incredible conversation with Caleb Hatton. And we're going to be chatting about his journey with creativity and mental health, and a little bit of Herzog sparkled in there for good measure. So, how are you doing, Caleb?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
Well, we just had a big old conversation about my kidney stones, but the audience doesn't really need to hear about that. But it's all about mental health today rather than physical health. So that's cool. So, well, hello everyone. Welcome to Focus on Fridays. This is our second ever Focus on Fridays, and I hope you're going to enjoy this incredible conversation with Caleb Hatton. And we're going to be chatting about his journey with creativity and mental health, and a little bit of Herzog sparkled in there for good measure. So, how are you doing, Caleb?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
Well, we just had a big old conversation about my kidney stones, but the audience doesn't really need to hear about that. But it's all about mental health today rather than physical health. So that's cool. So we came into contact a couple of months ago when you were posting about this great opportunity that you had to go and work with Werner Herzog. And if anybody doesn't know who Werner Herzog out there, to me, he's one of the truest filmmakers, and he'll jump into documentary or he'll jump into fiction and features and everything back and forth, but truly with a signature voice. So if you don't mind just giving us a quick intro about how that came about.
Yeah, for sure. So it's the third film accelerator is what they're calling it. So this is the third one that they've done. It's put on by a production company out of Spain called La Selva, which means the jungle. So this is the third one. I had applied to the previous two, and the first one didn't get in. The second one, I got put on a waiting list, and I'll try to make this a quick story, but I hadn't checked my email in like 3 weeks and happened to check it one day and saw, oh, you made it in. But we need all of our stuff by a certain date, like September something, 14th or something, which happened to be the day that I checked my email. And I it was already too late in Spain. It was like the date was in Spain, so I missed that one. That was the second one. So the third one, I applied again. A friend of mine posted, he was like, "Hey, you should definitely apply." And I almost didn't. I was like, "Yeah, I haven't been on bother this time," but I decided to, and so I applied, got on the waiting list again, and I was like, "Yeah, it's probably not going to happen," but I am going to check my email this time consistently. And sure enough, a few weeks later, it got an email saying, "Hey, you're in," and so I jumped right into it. It was pretty crazy, but
Cool,
I
fantastic.
got lucky this time.
And and so it was basically a week or 10 days workshop where you got to kind of learn from Herzog about storytelling and things like that. And you made a film during that time as well.
Yep. So it was a 12-day workshop over in the Canary Islands on the island of La Palma, which is part of Spain, but it's off of the west coast of Africa. So 12 days. The first few days, they take you out scouting. The production company had locations already kind of figured out, so they took us around to scout, and then they had what actors lined up. They had a list of about 120 people, locals that wanted to be involved, and so you at that point, we with having seen the locations and the potential actors, we came up with a story. I was partnered with a guy, Joshua Belinfante from Australia. So
Yep.
we came together, made a film. Our film is called Lilith Goes Galactic. Kind of a quirky little documentary. It's not available to watch yet, but it will be at some point.
Yep.
So yeah, it was very, very cool.
Cool. Fantastic. And part of Focus on Fridays is we're trying to showcase the benefits of creativity and mental health, how people find storytelling to help them on their journey. So you were gracious enough to make a little short film about your experience and your history. So we'll just have a quick watch of that, and then we'll be right back and we'll have a few more questions.
When my daughter Claire died in 2020, I fell into a dark abyss. I had struggled for years with what I later learned was depression and anxiety, but I always found ways to push through. I kept moving, kept focusing on the next thing to pull me out. But a year after Claire's death, I couldn't do it anymore. I survived that first year because I had to. I'm a father on a small farm. I was the only income for my family, and there wasn't time to fall apart. 2 weeks after Claire died, I went back to work. I was broken, but I hid it. I didn't let the world see what was happening inside me. A year of surviving takes its toll. The mask I wore started to crack. The pain began to show. My old struggles with mental health seemed small compared to what I was facing now. The weight of it felt impossible. People noticed. Friends, family, coworkers. They asked what was wrong, worried for me. I pushed them away. I told them I was fine. I lied to them, but mostly I lied to myself. Still, there were moments when light broke through. My children were that light. They've always been. Their love, their joy, it pulled me back. And then, slowly, my storytelling returned. That old fire, that need to create, flickered back to life. That fire led me to a workshop in Werner Herzog on the island of La Palma. There I worked with Joshua, a brilliant Australian. We were an odd pair. Our ideas clashed at times, our personalities tangled. But something good, something amazing came out of it. Joshua was sharp, faster than I could keep up with. Before the workshop, he shared his thesis on Herzog, a work of genius. I felt like an imposter standing next to him, but he wasn't arrogant. He was humble and eager to work together. We stumbled plenty, but we created something worthwhile. Herzog gave me his time and wisdom, and I'm grateful for that. But I owe more to Joshua. He helped me find my way back to storytelling, back to myself. Now I have two lights to guide me. My family gives me the reason to live. Storytelling gives me the passion to do it well. Together, they keep the darkness at bay. The act of chopping wood on my farm became a way for me to breathe again. The rhythm of the axe helped clear my mind and steady my soul. It gave me the space to process, to find focus. In those moments, the weight of grief felt a little lighter, and slowly it opened me up to telling stories again. It was as if the work of splitting wood, simple, direct, taught me how to break down the walls I'd built around myself, and eventually find my way back to the craft I loved. I began to draw parallels when I was in La Palma, between chopping wood and shooting film. I saw the similarities, I saw the simplicity, the creativity, the telling of a story. Each tree, each log has a story to tell. It is nearing the end. When it's chopped, soon it will be consumed in the fire, creating heat and energy. The whole process began to remind me of why I wanted to tell stories, why I wanted to create. And that brought me back to my core. My family, my children, They give me reasons to live. Creating something beyond that brings the light back into it.
Great, wonderful film, wonderful film.
Thank you.
I had the opportunity to work with you very slightly to kind of to help with feedback. You know, it's always difficult when you're working with another creative to sort of be constructive and to be, you know, connective. And so there was only a couple of notes that I gave you, and I hope that wasn't too heartbreaking for you. You know, it's
Yeah.
kind of like daggers to your chest sometimes when you get others commenting on your work. So we'll start off with the first question. So, what was the first piece of creativity that clicked with you when you finally realized the potential in order to help your mental health?
So my daughter Claire died a few years ago. I kind of talked about that in the film, and I made a couple of short films just after her death that kind of focused on that, on kind of dealing with that. And oddly enough, I those were good for me, but it didn't quite happen at that point still. It came a little bit later when I made a short film called Gilead, which was a little more abstract, but kind of dealing with um, a lot of my mental health issues from before Claire, but also kind of brought out by that experience with Claire died. That film, when I made it, I realized like, oh, this is a really good outlet. This is a way to express how I feel in a way that's creating something.
Mm.
And so that film Gilead, which is it's on YouTube, that one really clicked with me. Even though I'd made a few previously that kind of had to do with Claire's death, but that one specifically was like more centered about how I was feeling about that, and also just all my other mental health struggles that her death kind of brought out. So that was the film was Gilead.
Yeah. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that was a catalyst for your daughter, and it's just a very difficult thing. Um, but I'll also add a link to the film so that people can see that. But it is very brave, very strong for yourself to be so vulnerable in that element and you know connect in that way. So again, part of storytelling and part of you know creativity and things like that, as we mentioned, are subjective, and you know there's kind of lone wolves out there, and then there's also very collaborative type stuff. So would you kind of put yourself more in the lone wolf category?
I definitely tend more towards that. That's been a learning experience for me as I've been working in film, is learning how to collaborate, and it's still not easy for me, but I've learned and found people that I can trust and that I can work with. I actually just had a meeting with somebody just before this about some music for a short documentary I'm creating. And I've worked with this team a little bit before. Well, they did Gilead and a few other projects of mine. They're musicians, but I've learned that it is a collaborative thing, and just bringing other people in brings more strength to the project, brings another unique voice, and it just makes the project even stronger and better. You know, even like you said, the feedback you brought to the short we just played was extremely helpful. Like you said, it's hard to accept feedback, but it was very constructive. And yeah, I think film is collaborative, and though I have those tendencies of a lone wolf, I have begun to learn
Yeah.
and
Well,
better that
it's
way.
again, we can look at the analogy of mental health because mental health is a single path, for people. You're walking it alone, but to get through it, you got to ask for help, and it's all fine and dandy asking for help, but accepting the help is a whole new story, So on that standpoint, with your experience with Herzog, was there anything profound of his insights that he gave you directly? Because of course Herzog is famous for all his quotes, in that great accent of his, and just an incredible, worldly wise interactions and quips. But I was just wondering, was there anything that he said to you directly that kind of helped you?
Yeah, so had a really interesting conversation with him. I have a family, and he previously, kind of to a small group of us, had been talking about his relationship with his wife and how they make things work and make their relationship work. And he talked about he's like, I really recommend marriage. Like I think it's great, all this stuff. So I've kind of been thinking about that because I was gone from home for like 18 days, I think, for the longest I've been away from home since I've been married and had children. And my wife was incredibly supportive of me. But it's hard. It was hard for
Totally.
both of us and the kids. So I kind of been thinking about that, and I had an opportunity because he was around a lot, but there were a lot of other people, and he didn't want to capitalize too much on his time. But I had an opportunity, and I just asked him. I said, "Would you mind going a little bit deeper into how you've made this, your marriage with me at work?" And he kind of opened up and was like, it's incredibly difficult. It's, marriage, any relationship is hard with marriage, children, whatever, friends, whatever it might be. But he said, just find those guidelines, those rules, decide how the two of you are going to make it work. He said,
Mhm.
you have a family, you figured out with your family how it's going to work for you guys.
Yep.
But talk about it, and that really struck me. And I've been trying to put that into practice since I've been back, just kind of figuring out the plan, like how are we going to make this work?
Mhm.
And because film can be a tricky thing to work in, having family and stuff. So that
Yeah.
really struck me. That really struck me, and just his idea of sticking with it, which is all throughout. That's who Herzog is. He goes for it. Whatever
Yeah.
it is, making a film, a relationship, whatever, he goes
Yeah.
for it. So
Totally.
that was a
Yeah.
great learning experience.
And that reminds me of a George Harrison. Well, George Harrison's wife. So George Harrison from the Beatles.
Hmm.
And of course, when you're in the Beatles, you've got a lot of opportunity to be to cheat and to have extracurricular activities. And and George Harrison had a lot of public, affairs and things. But he stayed married, and his wife was once asked, "Hey, um, what's your secret to a long marriage?" And she just said, "Well, you just don't get divorced." And that's like filmmaking, everything. Like, what's the key to making a successful film? Is you just do it. You don't run away. You work through it, and you fix it. Just again, another analogy of mental health. Things are going to get tough. Things are going to fall apart, and you gotta just keep moving forward. And that's the wonderful thing. But that's I think that's really cool that Herzog was able to give you that that tidbit. So. And just as we wrap up here, because again, there's lots of issues and things that can fall apart, as we mentioned, through creativity, through making something. So, what do you feel is the most positive thing about your particular creative process?
I think for me, I do really love images. I really love to tell a story with an image. So I think when I think about telling a story and kind of my mental health and how that all comes together, um, telling a story is helping me to understand my own experiences, my own struggles, my own difficulties.
Yep.
And so I like translate that over to an image. Um, and that process, the writing process, becoming an image, all of that, it helps me, I think, more than any audience. I hope it helps the audience when the audience views it to feel something and to
Mhm.
think about their own struggles and life and things. But for me, if nothing else, I'm that process of creating that image and getting to that point really helps me work through what I'm feeling. Because I always write about things that I'm feeling. That may not be things that have happened to me, but things that I'm feeling, and it comes through in different ways. Obviously, there's not, I'm not just writing what my life is, but the feelings that are coming through are my feelings. And so that for me is huge. And that's,
Cool.
I've kind of have been able to come back to that, which has been very cool.
Yeah, good stuff. And of course, there are struggles in life. So, in your creative process, what is the thing that you dread doing? All these hurdles that you have to get over that keep showing up.
For me, a lot of it's the organizational stuff. I have been a producer on a feature film, just one, and that was actually super cool because that's all I was doing was the organizational stuff. But on my own projects, more where I'm writing and directing, like then having to step back and go, okay, I got to figure out when these actors can be here, when I can schedule this, when
Yeah.
I can do that, and of course, getting money is always dreadful. But
Hmm.
people are, you know, but people are great. But yeah, it's a those types of things are a struggle for me for sure.
Yeah, totally. When you're a right-brained person trying to live in the left brain is horrific at times. So, um, well, this chat has been very beneficial to me, and I hope the viewers out there have enjoyed it as well. But do you have any tips, just maybe a quick little tip that you can leave people with, either from a storytelling, filmmaking aspect, or your mental health, whatever you feel like?
Yeah, I think kind of going back to Herzog from some of the stuff I learned there, it's almost like I relearned some of it because it's pretty obvious stuff in a way. But like you said, like making a film, you just have to do it, and that's kind of the epitome of Herzog is go and do it.
Mhm.
And making a film on a mental health standpoint, all those things, there's steps oftentimes that need to be taken that aren't what you want to do, right? And they're not the fun part. You have to raise money to make your film, or maybe it's time to go get some therapy, whatever it might be. At the end of the day, we just have to go do it. We have to make that decision and
Yeah.
say, okay, I need help, or I'm going to make this movie, or whatever it might be, and take that first step, even if it's a tiny first step. Take that first step and get a little momentum going. And then it's still hard, but it can become a little bit easier as we gain a little bit of momentum. And that's one of the
Indeed.
hardest things to do. Making a movie, or if you're in a bad state mentally, that first little step can be the hardest thing in your entire life. I
Totally.
get that, but
Yeah.
we have to do it because it's going to help us. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And and if you feel that there's no one out there that'll help you, there certainly is. That's the wonderful thing about Facebook these days and social media in general is, if you don't have a circle that can help you either from a filmmaking standpoint or from a mental health, you can post. You just post, just be vulnerable, honest, say, hey, I'm struggling, this is what I need, this is what I like some help. And there'll be people there, complete strangers, have really saved my life on multiple occasions. So great. Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and I wish you the best of luck. And we'll put links to your other projects in the titles. And if you keep an eye on the comments, if anybody has any questions, I'm sure you'll be happy to answer them. So, but